In this video, I want to talk about what to shoot on which lens. What kind of subjects would be suitable for wide-angle, standard and telephoto lenses. Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto. I'm a photographer and a Lumix ambassador from Helsinki, Finland. In this video, I'd like to talk about what to shoot on which lens. What to shoot on a wide-angle lens, standard lens and a telephoto lens. Because all those lenses have their strengths and weaknesses, so to speak. But this is not to be taken as some kind of a rule, but more like my opinion. And I also hope this will give you some ideas for your next photo walk. But let's talk about those lenses now. I have a classic prime setup with me today. I have a 28mm, 50mm and 85mm equivalent lenses with me. Or my wide angle is not strictly 28mm but 30mm equivalent. I have the 15mm f1.7 Leica and the 25mm f1.4 Leica and the 42.5mm f1.2 Leica primes for my Lumix G90 that I have in my backpack here. I'm gonna start with my least favorite lens type, which is the telephoto. This lens is not my least favorite lens. This is an excellent, awesome lens, but generally I don't use telephoto lenses unless I have to or I have a very clear purpose to use them. I don't usually even take a telephoto lens with me when I do my personal project or shoot for myself. But today I have this excellent Leica 42.5mm f1.2 as my telephoto lens. But what would you shoot on a short telephoto lens then? One obvious use, of course, is traditional head and shoulder portraits. But you can also shoot architectural details. And one of the upsides of a telephoto lens compared to a wide angle is that you get very little keystoning or perspective distortion on a longer lens like this. I also like to use a short telephoto like this or any telephoto for landscapes or cityscapes. And I find it a lot easier than on a wide-angle lens because if I use a wide angle, I usually end up with this huge foreground that does nothing for the picture. But on a telephoto, I don't usually have that problem. Maybe it's just that I'm not very good at using a wide angle for landscapes, or I'm probably not very good landscape photographer in the first place. But let me now show you some pictures that I shot on this Leica 42.5mm f1.2 lens, and then I'll talk about shooting on a standard focal length lens. I hope you enjoyed those pictures, and now let's talk about the standard lens. And my standard lens today is the Leica 25mm f1.4 that has become one of my favorite lenses. This is the Mark II version, the weather sealed version. And this kind of a lens, 50mm equivalent, is called a standard lens for at least a couple of reasons. It equals roughly, or the angle of view or the perspective it gives equals roughly to a human eye. But this kind of a lens, a 50mm equivalent, used to be the kit lens some decades ago before zoom lenses took over. But what would you shoot on a standard lens like this? This is suitable for all kinds of general photography, but it's well suited for portraits, for example, maybe not for the traditional head and shoulder portraits, but a bit wider portraits like environmental portraits, or even so-called street portraits if you are into that kind of stuff. And a standard lens usually offers a relatively fast maximum aperture for a good price. So a lens like this would also be a good affordable choice for handheld low light photography. But like I already said, this kind of a lens, a standard lens, would be suitable for all kinds of photography, and this would be my recommendation for the first prime lens as well. But here are some pictures that I shot on this Leica 25mm f1.4 lens. Let's check out those pictures, and then I'm gonna talk about shooting on a wide-angle lens. And my wide angle today is the Leica 50mm f1.7, which is also one of my favorite lenses. This is a 30mm equivalent in full frame terms and so-called moderate wide angle. A moderate wide angle like this is really well suitable for street photography, for example, environmental portraits, and also architecture, and maybe even travel photography. And because of the wide angle of view, you can really emphasize the foreground in your picture. Shoot into the light, for example, and fill the foreground with those sweeping long shadows and make them a visual element in your picture. And you can divide your scene into shapes by using the horizontal and vertical lines. And because of the strong perspective distortion you get on a wide angle, you can easily angle those lines the way you want by tilting or turning the camera just a little bit. But let me now show you some pictures that I shot on this 15mm f1.7 Leica lens, and after that I have some lens recommendations for you if you'd like to build a similar setup that I have here. I hope you enjoyed my wide-angle shots. And now let's talk about this setup that I have here. All these lenses that I have are Leica branded premium lenses in the Lumix lineup. The 50mm f1.7, 24mm f1.4 and the 42.5mm f1.2. But there is another similar setup that you can build for a lot less money, and it's also a lot more compact. And I do have Amazon affiliate links down below, so if you feel like shopping some camera gear, please use those links and you'll support my channel at the same time. And the lenses in that alternative, more affordable setup would be the 14mm f2.5, the 25mm f1.7, and the 42.5mm f1.7. All those lenses are much more affordable, and the whole kit would be extremely compact and lightweight. But why would you choose a 3 prime setup like this over a zoom lens? One reason is that the primes have faster maximum aperture, of course, and the other reason could be that each individual prime is lighter and smaller than a zoom lens. And another reason, at least for me, is that my shooting style is very different on a prime lens compared to a zoom lens. When I have a prime lens on my camera, I tend to see only pictures or scenes suitable for that particular prime. So my mind is more selective, and I tend to take better pictures on a prime lenses because of that. but that's just me, and your experiences may be totally different. And as a matter of fact, I'd like to know how you feel about shooting on a prime lens compared to a zoom lens. Does it make any difference in your photography? Please let me know in the comments down below. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.